345 6060 973.
We've been absolutely inundated with messages from static caravan owners telling us their horror stories. I tell you, if I was on air for another 3 hours, I would read all of them out. I really would, just so you can really see the extent of this. I do just want to read this one out. Sheila's in Bristol, and she says, my husband and I purchased our static van 9 years ago after his retirement. 6 months ago, the park management informed us that we would need to replace the van with a newer model, failing which we would be evicted. We couldn't afford this, so had no choice but to leave. My husband was devastated, and on the day we emptied the van, the 3rd of March 2021, he suffered a stroke and died 3 days later. To make matters worse, the park management refurbished the inside of the van, and it's now been sold on for £9,500. Sheila, that is a heartbreaking story. I'm so sorry to hear that story. One of the things you didn't tell me is, did you get any of that £9,500? I'm guessing you didn't. This just should not be happening. It really shouldn't be happening. I'm glad you've sent that message in, because it really, the hairs on my arms have stood up. It's such a horrible story. And Sheila, thank you so much for having the courage to send that in. I hope that really sends the message clear that something has to be done. I've heard so many bad stories. That's one of the worst I've heard. That's awful. And I do hope that something happens. And I promise you, Sheila and everyone else out there suffering, I'm not going to let this go. We'll keep highlighting this on LBC as well. This is something where we need some change, and I hope change comes. Lots of calls coming in as well. Robert from Guildford, I think, also has a horror story about static caravans. Evening, Robert.
Evening. Thank you for having me on. Me and my wife bought a lodge or a static caravan 3.5 years ago for £160,000. We had to stay in it over COVID because I'm diabetic, and my main residence, my mother, is over 70, so we were told by medical people to stay where we are. We've since had a letter telling us we've breached our contract and we need to get off site, and we've actually now got an eviction notice from them to say to get off site. They're offering us a derogatory figure for the lodge stroke caravan, and we're looking at financial ruin here, you know.
So, Robert, let me just make sure I'm clear about this. So what they're saying is that because you stayed on site when technically you shouldn't have been there, and you stayed because you had COVID, you had no choice, because of that, you're in breach of contract.
Yeah, because I stayed on site because I'm diabetic. I was told not to leave.
Sorry.
Yeah. So we were then asked to provide proof of identity of our residence. Now, being that I don't own the house as our residence, my mother owns it. I'm not legally allowed to go onto the council tax bill. But I got a letter from the council saying to me, "You are a resident of that address, and you are on our register as a council tax member." But the site have said that's not good enough evidence. You need to leave.
Are they trying to say that you're trying to live on this site full time when you're not supposed to be?
Yeah, they're trying to say that, yeah.
Right, okay. This is a common story. I've heard this a lot. And in fact, I think Carole, KEEBLE, in the interview with her a little while ago, mentioned this as well, that this happens, and she's heard...
Yeah, there's about 120 letters gone out on this site.
To different people, not just to you, I assume, to other people, you mean?
To other people, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think so far, I think there's about 25 or 30 that have been evicted.
Wow.
And obviously when we sell the caravans, they want 15% of the sell price.
Yeah, I mean, again, it highlights the shocking sector that this really, really is. Robert, thanks for telling us your story about this. Let me give you some advice on this. Look, it appears to me that you didn't leave the site in this period out of necessity. You couldn't, because you would be at risk of COVID because you're a diabetic. I think that's what you're saying. I would go back and say that. That's why this happened. I think they're going further with it. They're trying to say, no, you're here full time. Get some witness statements. There must be people that know that you live at the other address. They must see you there. I would get some witness statements to that effect. Put as many things together that you can to prove your point and send it to them and say to them, if you evict me, I will take you to court. I'll sue you for damages. not enough people do this. And I know it's easy for me to say it as a lawyer because it's very difficult. Some people are worried about going to court and worried about what it's going to cost. Sometimes you just have to stand up for your rights because these caravan park owners should not be pushing people around like this. I only know what you've told me this evening. But from what you've told me, if you can get enough evidence together to prove where you actually live, I do not believe they will be legally entitled to evict you on the circumstances as you've described them. I'm only labouring that because sometimes people tell me a story and they miss out lots of important points that would change my view or my advice. But Robert, if it's as you say, then to me, it's clear as day. You should not be being evicted. I wouldn't just roll over. You're going to lose too much money, as you said, if you do. And I think you've got a good chance of defending it. I think they will think twice if you get some evidence, like some witness statements from neighbours at the other house where you do live. I think they'll think twice about doing this. And I think that's what you need to do. I hope that turns out well.